Bitcoin is currently pulling back just under 115,000 at the time of recording. We're going to ask the question, is this the big one? Is this a big pullback into that Q3 weakness that I've been speaking about? Or is this just a minor blip, a temporary dip, a trap to get traders out of their longs, to get traders flipping short at the wrong time before we accelerate and put in a new all-time high in August? I'm going to get into the charts and let you know my opinion. So we'll start off on Bitcoin. As you can see, Bitcoin pulling back then. Nothing too major right now. We've just come below 115,000. And what I've drawn on this chart here is this descending channel. This is also known as a bull flag when this appears in an uptrend. So what potentially we could see is a move down to around 112,000. This is going to be our previous high coming from the 22nd of May earlier on this year, and it also lines up with our 50-day moving average. So I quite like that as an area of confluence. You've got the previous all-time high, so it'd be a retest. It'd also be a test of the 50-week moving average. It would also be a test of this underside of this bull flag. So for me, this is the key area I'd be looking to put positions into the market. I'd at least expect some sort of bounce there up to the top side of this flag, at an absolute minimum, instead of a straight meltdown, instead of a straight rip lower, unless we get some massive breaking news that really hits the market and sends fear into the market and we actually lose this level. And in that case, we might come down. I'd be targeting around 106,000. If this 112,000 breaks, that would be retesting our prior sort of descending trend line where we were in this this bull flag, this consolidation before the breakout. I don't really see us going much lower than that. I think there'll be big support coming in around these highs here. So I'm not too concerned personally at the moment. If we look at our liquidation heat map, you can see that we do have some liquidity sat down here, and this runs down to around 113,000, potentially all the way down to that 112 mark. So a spike lower down to 112,000 would take out the vast majority of this liquidity. We also spoke yesterday about the fact there's this liquidity sat around 112,000. So do we come down, take this liquidity out, and then do we start to run higher? I think if we could get back to around this 117,000, we're going to take a lot of late shorts coming into the market. And then really at this point, it'll be a case of reassessing, do we go higher or do we go lower? But I favor this move probably a little bit lower first. I think the downside risk is there, especially with the stock market selling off, and potentially we then get a bit of a snapback and a bit of a relief. So that's Bitcoin. And obviously a lot of this move is being led by what is going on with the stock market. So if we just look here at the stock market, we can see we've had quite a sort of come down on the S&P already. All I will say is that this is now basically coming back to our or my path that I put in here. So we did get a little bit overextended. We're now coming back, sort of mean reverting in a way back to this path. And what I'd be expecting is potentially we come back and we retest some of these highs. We take out a lot of the liquidity, maybe under this low here, back from, it looks like around about the 16th of July low. And then we could also test the S&P's 50-day moving average before potentially going up and making a new all-time high or an equal high. It might be a lower high as well. I'm less clear on what happens here, but certainly I am expecting that Q3 weakness. So I'm not expecting this big drop to happen straight away from these prices. I am expecting us to get a bounce very soon, maybe within the next 1 or 2% down, that we will find some support and we will rally. Like I say, right now we are coming into the end of the week. And I think a lot of this is driven, I mean, it's the 1st of August. August is the quiet month. Volumes generally get low as people tend to go on their summer breaks and holidays over the August month. And seasonally, we usually see that weakness going into late August, September. So potentially traders are looking to front run this, get on the front foot and de-risk early. What I actually think, however, is that to actually sell here, to be going short here or looking to de-risk here, I think is a little bit too late. You either did it at the highs, preempting this weakness going into August, or you wait for a bit more confirmation. You wait for one of these major moving averages to get lost, you wait for momentum to actually confirm, you wait for a lower high. Maybe the lower high is the area that you would de-risk or move back to these highs, knowing we've got now got some active sellers at these levels. You would then look to de-risk into a push back into these highs. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm not expecting this market just to completely, for the bottom to fall out. There's still very, very positive flows in the stock market, and I think there's every chance that this is just a shakeout before a potential push higher. Maybe this goes a little bit higher, traps in a few late longs and late buys, and then we see that Q3 weakness coming in late August. That's what I've been speaking about. That is still my base case in terms of what I think happens over the next couple of weeks. So we can see the Nasdaq as well losing 23,000, so big psychological number here. Certainly, if the bulls can push us above the 23,000 number by the end of today's close and get this into a reversal candle, then that will look good for the stock market, challenging all-time highs once again in August. And I think the same will be said of crypto. So yeah, it's one of those where it's like you kind of have to keep your eye on what stocks are doing, because the correlations there. Obviously, the tariffs don't directly impact Bitcoin. However, they do directly impact a lot of the companies that trade in the S&P, a lot of the big tech stocks, companies like your Amazons that have supply chains going through China, places like, or companies like Apple as well. And obviously, it all has a knock-on effect. It all has an effect on what's happening in in the crypto market. As you can see, the dollar can carrying on a bit of strength here as well. So it's looking like it's put in a local low for now. And I think what I'll be looking for is at some point for this dollar move to reverse and turn around and start to come lower again. And that is probably the end of this correction in the stock market, in the crypto market, and we probably get some relief. Whether that happens now and we get some relief in August, or whether we actually continue to go higher and we see a larger pullback now, and then obviously things start to turn around later on in the year. I think that's really the million-dollar question: is this a more significant dip? Are we going to see one of these 8, 9, 10% pullbacks in the S&P, which would ultimately probably take us down to my Q3 target? So actually, I'm calling for about a 6% pullback from, sorry, that's not from the all-time highs. Let's grab those all-time highs if we can. So coming down here would be about 8% pullback. So that's what I think we probably see in Q3 of this year. Right now, I'm thinking this might just be a 3 to 4% pullback. So that is really the question. Do we get this 3 to 4% pullback in stocks, or do we get this 7 to 8% pullback? And obviously, that's going to have implications for crypto, and will determine how long we go on this move lower. Obviously, from all-time highs here, if we're capturing these, again, let me get the right place here. So right now we're pulling back around about 7.5%. I'm thinking we could go a bit lower, down to around about a 9%, 10% pullback. So I think that's something that we could do. If we look at what we did last time around in this sort of bull flag, we went down to around about sort of 8, 9%, and then we came a bit lower and we're about 12% off the highs in the end. So potentially we do something similar here, where we get a bit of a bounce at around the 8, 9% pullback. Then we go a bit higher, or at least try for higher, and then we get a larger move down. Obviously, I would say that the path is sort of still intact. If I'm just sort of looking at the path I've drawn on here in terms of the weekly path, you can see I am still expecting a high into late August, and then a pullback probably down to similar prices to where we are right now. This is why I don't really see the benefit to coming out of positions and sort of de-risking at these prices, at these levels. Of course, we can go lower. There are people calling for moves back down to 98,000, 100,000, but I think that's a little bit premature. Let's see how the next couple of days play out, the weekend plays out, and we'll reassess. Obviously, there has been some talk that we currently are on the bare moon as well. So I don't know how much you believe in the witches, witchcraft, and things like that, but you can see here, usually these bare moons stall the market. These are the new moons, of course, and the full moon or the bull moon usually results in us getting a nice pump to the upside. This one didn't quite work out here, but this one did. This one certainly did. That one did. So you can see in general, we tend to get a pump or some consolidation on the bull moons, and then on the bear moons, we tend to get some consolidation, or obviously, at worst, we can get a pullback, which seems to be what we're getting from this bear moon. So, shouldn't come as too much of a shock that we are pulling back slightly here. What I do want to see is this trend line that I've talked about in the last couple of videos held on a weekly closing basis. So, or at least I wouldn't want to see two weekly closes below this trend line. So for now, this remains a bit of an early warning sign for me. If we do actually lose that on the weekly close, then what I want to be looking for is a recapture next week. Failure to do that, and I'll start to get a little bit more nervous if we just look at our weekly chart. So here is how it is looking, and you can see we don't really have any sort of major MAs. These weekly bands here are the 12 and the 21 MA. So we can see that those are currently coming in just under 110,000. So by the time we get there, maybe next week, if we come down to these levels and we tag that 112,000 area, these moving averages will have started to move up also as support. But our 50-week moving average, which is really our line in the sand for the actual bull run, is still around 90,000 and fastly rising. And I just don't think we hit that until probably the end of the cycle at this point, with, like I say, there not being that long left to go. So that's Bitcoin and stocks covered. Let's take a quick look at Ethereum then. And Ethereum starting to pull back. So I did say yesterday, I sort of deviated away from my call that we would actually see a pullback from here, and I thought we might sweep the highs first. Now it's looking like we might actually get that pullback sooner, but I'm going to leave this on for now. I do still think by the time we get more of a Q3 pullback and consolidation, we will have to add the liquidity up here. So as you can tell, for me, not a lot has changed. I'm not walking away or abandoning my calls for a new all-time high in August just yet. I know I'm getting a lot of people around me starting to get very nervous, starting to get very negative and wanting to throw in the towel right here. But this is completely normal. This is completely normal, even in uptrends. You see those pullbacks, you see those red weeks. We haven't had a red week in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks for Ethereum. So these are completely normal. And when we do get these red weeks, we can often, see some expansion off the back of them on the following week before we then see a more prolonged pullback in price. So I don't think there's a huge amount that we need to be too concerned about right now. Solana is actually coming into the buy zone that I did indicate. So I did say I was looking at the mid 160s, so around about 165. We're pretty much down there right now at 168. So yeah, we're coming into pretty key support on Solana. I want to see that support held. I want to see Solana explode out of here. Maybe we do wick through these trend lines and put in a bit of a reversal candle, a bit of a wick there over the next week. But like I say, as long as we hold these trend lines on a weekly closing basis, I'm not too concerned for Solana. Sui as well, talked about it coming down into I think it was the 50% retracement. So if I just go onto a daily on Sui, we'll see that a little bit more clearly. You can see sort of swing low to swing high. Usually with these volatile cryptos, they like to come down and tag their 50% levels. We got loads of moving average support there. I think that's the 50, the 100, the 200 on the daily is all coming in around about the same level, which is around about 3.36. So that is my buy zone for Sui. About another 10 cents to go, and I will be adding to my spot positions, and also I might look to add to my leverage longs as well. I'm long from sub $3. So I mean, we could get down there if things start to get really ugly, but like I say, for now I'm viewing this as a shorter term pullback. Sonic as well is one that we talked about, And I did talk about the Tom DeMark weekly 9 as well, that was starting to move to the upside. Obviously, that got faded in a pretty nasty way. So there is still the risk that we come down and we touch this descending trend line, which is the bottom of this falling wedge, which we broke out from. I'd probably like to see that get front run and for us to turn around pretty soon. It looked like it was getting front run, but obviously the market has started to go bearish now. So that's why we're struggling a bit there. Pretty happy on the ton pick, the ton call, the ton holding up fairly well. Just a slight pullback so far today, but yesterday was positive when the rest of the market was starting to roll over. So I do think ton can show some relative strength and potentially decorrelate slightly from the rest of the market over the next few days and weeks. So we remain to see whether ton can hold this 200-day moving average breakout and start to accelerate to the upside. And the other pick that I gave you, slightly higher risk, slightly more DGM, but it is the main meme coin on ton, Resistance Dog or Redo, which is currently battling its 200-day moving average. And look, I think if the market turns around and we get a strong bounce out of these levels over the next couple of days, then Redo and Ton should really outperform given their relative strength on this pullback. So that's what I'm looking at. And that's really everything covered on this video. So just going back to Bitcoin then. So current plan on Bitcoin is to monitor this pullback, looking potentially as a worst case scenario right now at around about 112,000. Of course, we can go lower than that, but I'm not expecting that in the immediate term. I do think there will be buyers looking to step into the market at that level. I'll be looking also to step into the market at that level, and this will be a ideal place to add to certain altcoins if they line up with major supports as well. So obviously I've given you my list: Ethereum, Solana, Sui, Ton. I'm sticking to those majors. Near's in there as well. I'm sticking to those majors for now. I think they will get the liquidity first. Given the fact we've seen the rotation from Bitcoin into Ethereum, the next rotation, big rotation, should be Ethereum into other L1s. So your Solanas, your Suis, etc. And then we should start to move down the risk curve, probably into memes a bit later. So I understand memes are struggling a bit right now. I've been holding off on putting the video out just now once I see how things resolve, but it's probably a good time to do it because they have taken a bit of a hit over the last few days. So some of them are looking at pretty nice buy levels today. So yeah, I'll try and get that video out very, very soon. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you all again on the next one. Have a wonderful day and talk to you all soon.